The mother who drugs her children into compliance. A baby daddy who thinks if one woman can, then every woman must do it. The absolute best thing to do to prove your innocence. And the friend group that piggybacks off the younger brother's successful dating life to compensate for the fact they suck. Hey, you snacks, welcome back. My name is Jack, we've got some Reddit stories, let's begin. Beginning with this insane story. Am I the a-hole for getting my mother-in-law to move out after she cut me, my husband, and my oldest daughter out of her will? It sounds like a case of casual in-law bickering, but no. It's something that goes as far as literal child abuse. My husband and I have 4 kids. Alina, 20, Elise, 18, Ethan, 14, and Evie, 10. The only 2 that we have to care about in this story, though, is Alina, 20, and Evie, who's 10. 3 years ago, my husband built an ADU behind our house for his mom to live in. She paid for the ADU to be built, but she doesn't have any legal right to it. We don't charge her rent, and she pays for her own utilities. Evie, my youngest, and I have never had a great relationship, partly because the mother-in-law convinced her that I don't love her as much as her siblings, and that everything I do is wrong. Needless to say, I was not thrilled about mother-in-law moving in. As soon as she moved in, Evie's toy collection grew exponentially. She got a Lego set every week, she had every princess dress, movie, and book they could find. Evie's always had a thing for princesses. She used to take Evie with her to visit her sisters, which we later learned was code for trip to Disneyland, and anything Evie wanted was conveniently on sale. Oh, how terrible! Grandma's giving their grandchild things. The monster! Evie started being extremely difficult with me and my husband, and stopped taking her supplements after my mother-in-law convinced her that she didn't need them. She refused to go to her appointments and would scream bloody murder if I managed to get her in the building. We'd end up sedating her because there was no other way she'd let them touch her. This paragraph is probably the most important to take into account. Feeding this youngest daughter supplements that apparently she doesn't need. Sedating her just so she'll be useful in the appointment. You may assume that such appointment is something medical. Maybe this child has mental health issues or some form of disability. No, well, not what you'd assume it is. Continuing on, Alina spent a few months convincing Evie that we were in the right and mother-in-law was wrong, and Evie started to work with us again. She stopped spending time with mother-in-law and even threw out the clothes and toys mother-in-law bought her. Then she started to show concerning behaviors that led us to putting her in an intensive outpatient therapy program, then an inpatient program. Evie's been in the hospital for a few weeks now. Shortly after we hospitalized Evie, mother-in-law learned about Alina turning Evie against her and ruining Evie's life. She didn't speak to us after that. Now, Alina's boyfriend is a notary. Mother-in-law called him and asked to have her updated will notarized. She had cut him, my husband, and Alina out of her will and is giving everything to Evie. She explicitly stated that we were not to receive anything from her, so it will be difficult to contest it. When he told us, I produced a rental agreement for mother-in-law and told her that she either had to sign it or we would start the process of evicting her. She moved out that week, and now I have child protective services on my butt, which I'm sure is her revenge. So my husband thinks I went too far making her move out and thinks the mother-in-law is good for Evie's self-esteem and mental health. I reminded him that Evie's currently in a hospital because mother-in-law, but he's starting to take her side. This whole thing is a mess. Am I the a-hole for getting her to leave? So yes, on paper, you would think, okay, I think everyone sucked here. You being so bitter about a woman doing what she wants with her money, and also the mother-in-law for being spiteful enough to try and turn one of your own children against you. But as we look into the OP's comment history on this post, we learn that the supplements that she gives her daughter are sleep aids or antihistamines. Apparently, the only way for her to get through these appointments is to be put to sleep. But what are these appointments, you may wonder? Well, someone highlighting it from other previous comments, perhaps she has anger issues because you force her to go to an esthetician for hair and skin appointments she doesn't want. That would make most people pretty annoyed. Yes, that's right. She is drugging her child just so she can get her child to get some sort of professional beauty touch-ups for her skin. But it's okay, Opie's in the right, because 10-year-olds don't know what they need. She can stop going to those appointments when she's an adult. And okay, let's give her the benefit of the doubt. Why does the 10-year-old need to go? Because her skin skin is problematic. Also, the esthetician is my sister. She wouldn't do anything to my daughter that isn't in her best interests. But okay, here's the thing. As people point out in the comments, firstly, 10-year-old skin is way too sensitive to be going to an esthetician. If your child needs skincare help, they should go to an actual doctor about skin. They're called a dermatologist. This is like the difference between going to a nutritionist and a dietitian. Dietitians are literal doctors on diet and food. Nutritionists, 90% of them are just influencers on the internet. To summarize, holy cow, you sedate your daughter so that your sister can perform skin treatments on her that she clearly does not want. You don't think that's a bit insane? It sounds like the CPS call is warranted. And to further add to this woman's developing insanity, so a lot of people in the comments are really questioning the lack of proper info about this story. It's very rare for a 10-year-old to need inpatient treatment for behavioral issues. What's going on? OP says, her physical health is more or less okay, except for the fact that she wasn't eating before we hospitalized her. Mental health is all over the place. She's starting to go back to not trusting me and wanting her grandma, and I think the doctors are supporting it. I'm considering taking her out of this hospital and seeing how she does at home. That's right, the moment medical professionals literally think about something, nope, that's evil because it goes against me being the hero. So yeah, look, maybe there's some things we're completely missing here. Maybe this OP is just terrible at explaining the necessity of these appointments and the hospitalization for their 10-year-old daughter, but either way, it is not looking good on their side. Over to relationship advice with a story that was recently updated. A classic accusing your partner of something that they didn't actually do. But this time, it's the husband being the idiot. Hooray! Equality! My husband thinks I baby-trapped him despite the baby being planned. Please help. My husband, 35, and I, 32, have been married for 7 years. He lived next door and we just clicked. It was like a fairy tale. One thing I have always thought made our marriage so strong was our friendship with each other and our trust in one another. Although now, my husband seems to think otherwise. Recently, my husband found out that his friend, Jeff, 34, has been baby-trapped. Basically, Jeff's wife, 32, stopped taking the pill and fell pregnant a few months into their relationship, and only came clean after the wedding. Jeff came from a very conservative family, which his wife knew, and so he felt obligated to marry her after the pregnancy. Unfortunately, he also now feels obligated to stay regardless of the clearly messed up dynamic because he feels that he has made a vow and will stick by his wife and child. My husband, for some reason, has been really rattled by this. I am currently 4 months pregnant with our first, and my husband asked me yesterday if I was trying to baby trap him. I first laughed because I honestly thought it was a joke. He was dead serious and doubled down. So I told him we have already been married for 7 years, and a baby was not going to trap him any more than he already is. My husband did not like that answer and said that there was no time limit on baby trapping, and that my intentions were clearly not pure, given how I was acting as if his concerns were a joke. He said he had trusted me in the past, but me laughing in his face gave him no reason to trust me now. I did not really know what he wanted or how I was meant to respond, and I said we should talk about this in the morning. Well, today I woke up and my husband was gone. But I did have a nasty text from his brother saying that I forced my husband into this pregnancy despite it having been a joint decision. My husband is missing in action and not responding to calls or texts, and now I am wondering how on earth to go forward. Any advice is appreciated. Now, unlike previous stories where women have believed their husband was a cheater and kicked them out only to find out it was all a lie and a facade, at least those women had fabricated evidence to make them believe it was a true thing. This guy, he sees something happen to one person and like, oh, that must happen to me too. It's clear that OP's favorite superhero growing up was Elastigirl. Now, it was a day later that we got an update, however, this isn't the final one. Story got removed because apparently you can't update within 24 hours, has to be a minimum of 48. But it's rather interesting that in this story, the mother-in-law is completely against her own son. Not sure if I am allowed to post here again, but I wanted to quickly update everyone who was kind enough to give me some advice. I didn't respond to anyone because my post was locked quite quickly, but I have read every single comment and message. I am very grateful. I realized while I was reading the comments that everyone was right. I wasn't angry enough. My husband had insulted me and our marriage in a very hurtful way, and it just didn't really register for a while. I was so confused and upset that it didn't occur to me to be angry, but I think everything just needed to sink in. In the meantime, I called my best friend, 31 female, who has been such a rock in my life. She came over with some chocolate and was furious when she heard. She called her husband, 34, to the house after I had gotten everything out of my system. He is a family lawyer, and he said that he would happily represent me if I wanted to go through with a divorce. This man is a saint, and will draw up divorce papers on Monday. Interestingly, my mother-in-law, 66, showed up with my husband in the car not long after my best friend's husband arrived, and she practically dragged him to the door. My mother-in-law said that he had showed up at theirs late last night, saying that he was certain that I was using the baby to trap him. Fortunately, my mother-in-law is a smart woman and absolutely tore him a new one before dragging him to the house today to apologize. My worm of a husband did not look me in the eye the entire time, but said that he was scared about becoming a dad and projected his fears onto me. He said he wasn't sure if he was ready for that kind of commitment, but he will step up, as if he is some kind of hero. Eye roll. I'm telling ya, Elastigirl. I called him a coward and told him that he should stay with his parent until I am ready to talk to him. I didn't want to say anything about the divorce papers because I didn't know what his reaction would be, but he will find out soon enough. I also showed my mother-in-law the text from my brother-in-law, and her face was like a storm cloud. I don't know what will happen there, but I am sure it will be bad. For now, I am exhausted and just want to curl up and cry. My best friend said she'll spend the night with me and we can watch silly movies. I have also made an appointment with a therapist for next week, but for now, I just need to rest. I am exhausted and devastated that my marriage has come crumbling down. Sorry for the sad ending, everyone. While the comments offer support and love to the mother-in-law for being the sane one in that family, we move on to the update just a few days ago. Overall, everything has settled a little bit. In good news, I had a scan with the doctor. My mother-in-law attended with me, and the baby is happy and healthy. I finally found out the gender. I am having a little girl. I am over the moon. My mother-in-law was a gem and was so touched that I had included her in the scan. She is very excited to be a granny. And okay, this next part. Half of me loves it because yay, drama, but also, damn, I feel like this mother-in-law at this point is just trying to twist the knife that is her son's failings. On that note, my mother-in-law organized a family lunch a couple of days after the scan. I was a little reluctant, but I knew that she had good intentions and wouldn't do anything to make matters worse. When I arrived, my husband and brother-in-law were there, along with my father-in-law and mother-in-law. It was quite awkward until my mother-in-law asked if anyone had anything to say. My brother-in-law spoke first and apologized for his awful text, saying that he was swept up in the moment and wanted to support his brother. I explained how hurtful it had been to receive such a nasty and vindictive message, and that he knew as well as anyone that my husband and I had been trying for almost a year. He hung his head and mumbled something. That was pretty much the last I heard out of him for the afternoon. Next, my mother-in-law looked quite pointedly at my husband, but he actively avoided anyone's eyes. Eventually, she spoke up and announced that my husband would no longer be welcome to stay in their house. She said that she was ashamed to have her son behave the way that he has, and that she would prefer to make space for her granddaughter rather than have some lowlife hanging around. My husband had opened up his mouth to say something earlier, but his eyes lit up when she said granddaughter. My husband had always wanted a girl, and he was suddenly in tears, saying that he was so pleased to hear the gender. Wow, what a complete 180 of character. My husband was suddenly wanting to touch my belly and asked if he could come home and paint the nursery. I told him in no uncertain terms that he was not welcome and that he had destroyed any trust I had in him. I told him that if I took him back, I would be worried that he would disappear at any kind of big news, and that I couldn't have someone at my side who balked at the first chance. He asked me if I was telling him it was over, and I point blank told him that I had engaged a lawyer. My husband was kind of frantic, but I felt so calm, like someone had put a blanket over me in the situation. Normally, I am a big crier. but I felt so removed from everything. My husband said that this was not fair. He had shown a little bit of panic, and suddenly I am throwing away our life and denying him his daughter. My father-in-law reminded him that this is the same baby he felt trapped by no more than 2 weeks ago. My husband said it was a mistake and that he was stressed, but my mother-in-law asked him how he thought I felt. She asked him to imagine being so vulnerable and giving up your body to grow a family, and suddenly the one person you trust is accusing you of terrible things. He said it was a mistake and he projected his fears onto me. Great, so you admit you did it then. Do you see how you're not really defending yourself more so than just exposing how stupid you were? Yes, Your Honor, I did murder him, but you don't understand. I only shot him because I had a gun in my hand. I told my husband that I felt so broken when he left because I had all these dreams of a beautiful family which came crashing down in an instant. My husband said that he wanted those things with me and he wanted our baby girl, but he let the panic overwhelm him. I told him that wasn't a good enough excuse for what he put me through, and that he certainly didn't seem panicked when his mum had to drag him to my door to apologize. He didn't have much of an answer other than to say that he was ready now and wanted our girl. Well, you should have come to that conclusion in the 90 seconds it took for you to make the child. Note that in all of this, in all of the times he told me he wanted me and our baby, he never once apologized properly. After a very, very long discussion, the lunch wrapped up and my mother-in-law stood by what she said about my husband not being welcome. He asked again if he could come home with me, and I told him that it was my house. I owned the house before we married, and it was going to be a safe space for me. That is to say, he is not welcome. As far as I know, he is staying at some hotel. Finally, he was served divorce papers at work on Friday. My bestie's husband drafted them earlier, but I wanted to wait until I had thought it all through. I received a few missed calls and crying voicemails asking if I was really throwing away our family, but I did not respond. He even took a crying selfie in his car, which made my bestie laugh quite a bit. My mother-in-law called me when she heard and told me that I am making the right decision. She said she never wanted my marriage to end this way or for her son to be so callous, but she said she is here for my baby and I, and that we will always be family. She even tried to apologize on my husband's behalf, but I told her that was not necessary. At the end of the day, his actions are his own. My best friend has been around all weekend, and we went baby clothes shopping for a little bit of sunshine in all of this. She has been such a rock, and her husband has helped so much with the process. I don't know what will happen next, but I feel much calmer and like I am making the right decision. I do love that in a way, you could totally spin this story as, my wife was manipulated into leaving me by my mother and her friends so her lawyer boyfriend could profit off my divorce. Overall, as this comment says, it's nice that in a way you can say that you got his mum in the divorce. Now tell me, do you think this person's guilty? It's a bit of a tricky one. You're gonna have to pay a lot of attention. My boyfriend destroyed his phone on purpose. I was cheated once before by an ex, and I had a hard time trusting anyone for a few years. 3 years ago, my current boyfriend won me over with his personality. I thought he would be faithful. 2 days ago, my friend said that she saw my boyfriend's profile on Tinder. I was worried, but I heard anyone can make fake accounts. I decided to ask my boyfriend. He denied everything and said that he was catfished. I asked to see his phone, but he insisted that if I love him, I would trust him. I said he shouldn't have had anything to hide, but he keeps refusing to show me his phone. Finally, he threw his phone to the ground and broke it. I now have a strong feeling he is cheating, but how do I get proof so I can break up with him? Ma'am, that is your proof. I don't think it gets clearer than that as to how trustworthy he is. What, this one piece of evidence here that can easily prove that I'm innocent? Well, better not let you have access to it. I think it's fair to say that you don't need proof. His actions speak louder than words. Not to mention the, if you loved me, you would trust me. Like, okay, come on, dude. Obviously, you'd know your partner's history. You know you need to do more than that. Over to Am I the A-hole, where we're about to learn that yes, it can be... Birds, shut up. Thank you, birds. Shut up. Where we learn, yes, okay, it can be healthy and safe to vet your friends' partners, especially if they have a terrible history in their decision-making with dates. But to go this far, and to use this sort of terminology, Oh man, I hope you're ready to mentally vomit. Am I the a-hole for calling my brother's girlfriend boring because she wouldn't participate in our group initiation process? Thanks to some unfortunate growing up circumstances, my brother and I lost our parents early in life. Thanks to some fortunate ones, we were both left a significant amount of money. Well, I was 20 when our dad, our only other living parent, passed away, and my brother was 15. I became his guardian for those 3 pivotal years of his life before he turned 18, and suddenly I had 3 roommates instead of 2. We could have gotten a place for just the 2 of us, but things felt better with more people around. Not so bleak. All of that backstory is to say that myself and my entire friend group are pretty protective over my younger brother. At this point, I'd venture to call him our younger brother, in the found family way of it all, and thus, anyone my brother dates gets introduced to us. He doesn't have parents to vet these people, so that has become our job. I'll admit, it's a bit of a boys' club, and an exclusive one at that. After a string of awkward encounters with terrible people that we were duped into calling romantic partners, the initiation was born. It's a simple process. The person being introduced to the group has to plan our night. It can be as cheap as a movie night, or as extravagant as a stuffy dinner in the best restaurant the next town over. No matter what, it has to be fully planned by the introducee. So to translate,
none of our previous partners stuck around, so in order to reclaim some sense of power and pride in ourselves, we treat any new potential woman in our lives with hostility, unless she acts as our secretary for a day.
Now, would any of us actually ban someone from the group over this? Not unless some truly rancid vibes were picked up on. And for my brother, as much as I love him, loves a pretty face more than he loves thinking things through, so we've experienced this before. But still, it's mostly just a fun, lighthearted icebreaker. My brother's most recent conquest is someone we'll call Ashley. Usually the people we're introduced to aren't total strangers. My brother will obviously hang out with them for a while before we meet them, so we'll see them coming in and out of our shared place. Ashley is someone I've been saying brief hellos to for about a month now. So last night, my brother called me while he was at her place and told me to explain the initiation process to her. So just to clarify,
he's already met Ashley. They already are aware of her. Therefore, with any sense of common sense,
the initiation process is completely pointless. Oh, I'm sorry, no, I'm completely wrong. It's not pointless. It gives these boys a free night out. To what? Be on a pseudo date with Ashley themselves? That's what this is. This is them piggybacking off each other's potential relationships. So after I went over everything, Ashley flat out refused. I was pretty taken aback by this, and she went on to say that it was childish, and she shouldn't need to go out of her way to impress us to be accepted. I told her she had misunderstood the point, but she doubled down. I told her that if she felt like that, she probably was a little too boring to be a good fit for any of us or my brother. Yeah, note how he says, or my brother, second to that? Yeah. But he was old enough now at 19 to make his own choices. My little brother is equal parts annoyed at me for saying that, and annoyed at her for shutting down a fun tradition. Am I the a-hole? Okay. Again, need to highlight here, the only people who benefit from this tradition are you and your mates, of which we should note, seem to all be single. You're kinda left to wonder, why is that, huh? Maybe it's got to do with the stupid tests that you put your women through. You're the a-hole. Initiation process? What the flip is this? This woman is dating your brother, not you. She doesn't have to impress you. You are a major red flag, homie. Oh, I love Ashley. She's got a backbone. You should pray that your little brother marries a woman who can stand up to your laddish nonsense. Yata. Though on the other side of the fence, no a-holes here. Honestly, it's just a weird version of Meet the Parents, so I don't really see a problem, although the attitude when she said no might have been a bit much. Although, she could have said no thanks instead of the attitude too, so one bad attitude kind of cancels out the other bad attitude. Either way, maybe next time he gets a girl, or if he keeps dating this one, you do the planning and invite her. Can still get to know her without giving the new person all the responsibility. And hey, I think they've got a good point. Don't know why they got 23 downvotes for that. It's pretty valid. Like, yeah, you can still do the fun day and all. Why not just put some effort yourself into it? Your lads aren't a trophy yourselves. You gotta prove you're as valuable as she is into this whole dynamic. There's further discussion in the comments with the OP, notably because at least one person out there is giving them a natar. In response to, is this not exactly how people meet new partners in a family? Yeah, exactly. The traditional way to do things is usually the family will invite the new partner over, but the intention of how we do things is we don't put in any effort ourselves instead. It's all up to the woman. For example, if someone really likes hiking, it would obviously be a much better experience to meet them where they're at and go hiking during our first time properly getting to know one another.
Wow, how fun. Taking you to the thing I enjoy doing so you can judge me whether or not you actually want to have me around. I think the biggest lesson this guy needs to learn is that your little brother is an adult now. You can have relationships with people that don't have anything to do with your actual friendships.
Well, my friends, that is the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching. If you're watching this at the start of the day, I hope you have a good one. If you're watching this at the end of the day, I hope you have good dreams. And if you're watching this without headphones, that'll teach you.
Anyway, you'll be good. Remember to drink water in the sense that you're waterboarding yourself, but not too much, because, then you could die. Anyway, be good. Bye!